With so many games releasing every single day, it's very easy to miss out on some good games that have been there for a while. Unless a game is an outright hit or maybe a meme where the whole community just immediately jumps on it, you might not even hear of some of them. But maybe you do hear about it, but the next big game comes out, so you pass on it for a minute. And then the next big thing comes out, so you pass on it again. So on and so forth until you end up actually not playing the game in the first place. Well, I compiled a short little list of games that you might have overlooked that I think are actually worth your time. Of course, if you played any of these games, let me know what you think about them down in the comments, along with recommendations of other games you think deserve more shine. I might even feature them in the next list video, so make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into it. Lost in Random. If you are in the mood for something fun and different to get lost in, no pun intended, Lost in Random is for you. It looks and feels different from most games out there. It's incredibly creative and has an interesting world with a very fun, unique combat system that I really enjoyed. Coming from EA, from all places, Lost in Random released in 2021. In the kingdom of random, your fate is decided by the roll of the Queen's Black Dice. Once you reach the age of 12, you will be assigned to one of the 6 realms within random. You play as Even, the younger sister of Odd, who on her 12th birthday was taken by the Queen to Sixtopia. A year later, Even gets a bad feeling and awakens in the middle of the night and decides to go find her sister across the realms. She then runs into Dicey, a dice who has lost some of his pips, and as you put Dicey back together, he joins the journey to help find your sister and take down the Queen. There definitely is something kind of heartwarming about the story, using the sister's love as motivation, but it also touches a lot on self-doubt and believing in yourself. That actually work and does hit you in a better way than I've seen other games try to do it. And there's a ton of lore that really help grow this world. Back in the day, before there was this war, there was a bunch of dice wielders running around. And now the only remaining dice in the world are the queens and evens. So that's actually a big deal. Not only for the story, but also because dice is a huge part of the combat. This game combines a few elements of the combat like dice rolling, cards, and strategy to create something very unique that I don't really remember playing anything like before. Even is equipped with a slingshot and dicey. That's literally all she has. So you first have to get dice gems as you shoot these blue crystals off of enemies to start building your hand randomly from your deck. Once you get enough crystals, you can roll dicey. Each card has a value to it, so depending on what dicey rolls, those are the points you can spend to use the cards. So you roll dicey, time stops for the enemies while you can move around freely planning your next move. Some cards can heal you, others summon things to help like a bouncy ball or a cannon, or maybe an item that deals damage when it gets hit. Other cards give you weapons, a bow and arrow, a sword, a lance, that even can use to unleash light and heavy attacks onto enemies. Other cards even involve Dicey, having him explode or create a tether between him and Even to damage whatever that touches. Others give you abilities like her dodge deals damage or decrease the value of cards, or even give you more points on rolls. There's just so many things that are at your disposal. So what cards you use and the order you pick them matters as well, because you only have a certain amount of points. There's a total of 34 cards to collect, but you can only have 15 of them at a time on your deck. So there is some strategy to the deck building, as well as some freedom to your gameplay, because you can use what you like and what you know works for you. Like for example, the axe looks very cool at first, but I found it to be too expensive, so I spend those points on something else, or I'd rather have something else that would help me in the battles. But once you unlock a bunch of the cards, you start combining cards, like putting a cannon in front of something that triggers an attack upon getting hit, and now you really have your cards working for you. Of course, the cards don't last forever, so you have to get more dice gems to get to roll again, to get more cards to be able to attack, and you do this until you defeat all the enemies and you move on. It might sound like a lot at first, like there's a bunch of cards and dice plus the story, but I really liked how the elements just ended up working well together. It might take some time to get used to the whole earning your next move per se, and sometimes you might find yourself in a pickle. You might be running low on health and no cards that can give you the health, so you have to back up and shoot the crystals off the enemies and hope you draw a card that actually heals you. And sometimes you might not get that card to heal you or a weapon to attack, so you have to maneuver around that as well, really having to operate with what you're given, which can lead to long drawn out fights sometimes. You can also pin cards that you might not have enough points for in that specific roll, securing that they will carry over to the next roll, assuring that you will get that card. So all these elements lead to very fun and hectic boss fights which get to be crazy and always add an interesting and fun element to it. The game is not painfully difficult. I would categorize it more on the easier side, but I did found all the mechanics working together to be really fun and simply just work in an interesting way. There are also board game arenas where on top of everything you are already doing in the battle, your role also moves a board piece on the arena. Maybe your goal is to get the chess piece to the end, activating things as you land on switches on the board. There's a few different type of these and a couple boss battle type deals as well that involve yet another level of strategy. And these can be very fun. You are juggling a lot of things at once, and I feel like the true brilliance of this game is that all this stuff never gets to be overwhelming. You buy cards from this very cool collector looking dude, and after a certain amount of purchases, you get packs to open that unlocks new cards to purchase at the shop. You also get cards as a reward from side missions as well, but the side missions are very meh. It's a lot of just talk to this guy, take this to that guy, that sort of stuff. And I also have to say the map kind of sucks. It does take a minute to know how to read it properly. Like, they don't mark you on the map, so you just have to like read signs to figure out exactly where you're at. There's not a whole verticality to the game. There's no platforming, can't even jump. But the level design is also tight with not many open spaces. The game is pretty linear. There are some backtracking for the side quest, but I still love exploring the levels because they're just so cool looking with people from each realm walking around. You can pretty much talk to anyone, with them usually giving you insight of the lowdown as to how things work around here, which is great for the world building, but some conversations are also long and drawn out, really not providing a whole lot of information. There are dialogue options that really just serve as a way to portray either her being scared, confident, or rude sometimes, but I feel like no decision really changed the course you're already on from the journey. Maybe you'll reconnect with the character later on, and maybe they'll remember exactly what you said, but no option will alter the story in any way. So you do get to talk to a lot of characters. Luckily, the game features some great voice acting.
I've had enough of this job. Ouch. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh, a dice? Where did you come from, little one? My God.
And some of the bad guys are just awesomely creepy. The character design is great. Most people would describe them as Tim Burton-esque, and as cliche it is, yeah, I have to agree. Every single character looks like it belongs on a t-shirt at a Hot Topic, but it also manages to feel unique to its own gothic fairy tale world. Like, it doesn't feel like a cheap Burton ripoff. I really did love the stop motion feel to the game, the aesthetic and grimy environments. The textures are really cool. I really enjoyed the world that they build, and the music is paired perfectly for it. Zoink did a great job in creating a world that I would love to revisit in a sequel. I did find out that there's a roguelike spin-off called Lost in Random The Eternal Die, and would love to eventually check that one out. I really made this whole list video just as an excuse so I can talk about this game. I really enjoyed it. It was really surprising. It was a game that I've always been seeing just there, either at a game store or on the Game Pass, and when I finally gave it a chance, I think it's completely worth it. Moving on to Shady Part of Me, released in 2020. You play as a little girl who can only traverse in the dark, and her shadow who can only move in the light. They have to work together in these dreamlike levels to try and overcome their fears, with the story being told without any extra cutscenes really taking you away from what you're seeing on screen, very much like a Limbo or a Little Nightmares. Instead, by collecting these origami birds, words pop up, giving you a bit of insight as to what each character is feeling and maybe what's actually going on. But it's very vague, leaving it up to your interpretation. This game is very simple. It's just get to the end. There's no enemies. There's really just things in the way. Some parts are just straight up platforming. Others require teamwork with yourself. So you literally are playing with yourself a lot. You will be switching between the two to solve puzzles to be able to move along, as one operates in the 2D with the light, the other in 3D space with the dark. So whatever you move in the dark affects what happens to the light. So as the girl, you will be dragging, pressing, and moving things to change the shadow so that the shadow girl can move forward. So you can switch between them with a simple press of a button and rewind instantly as much as you like whenever you screw up, which is fantastic for my lack of patience. The best thing about this game is the way that they use perspective. It's really fantastic. It forces you to change your perspective to be able to solve the puzzle. Some puzzles are super easy and others do take a second to solve, and others do make you feel like a smarty pants when you do eventually figure it out. It wasn't until the very last puzzle, which is the only one that kind of stumped me, only because of one simple thing I didn't notice on screen. But for the most part, it has great puzzle design. The art style is very moody, it's simple, yet there's a ton of detail everywhere, and there's a little bit of a creep factor to the world, which I love. You can kind of put the pieces together as to what's going on, but because of how they use the world around her, it's still kind of left up in the air. It's like a mental institution, so there's a doctor involved, so is she sick? Is she dead? I don't know. It's up really to how you perceive the story. The music is good, and I really like how it subtly changes between the planes, signalizing to me that while the worlds can affect each other, they're still two different worlds. That might be right, I don't know, it's just how I understood it. But overall, the music is good. The voice acting is also pretty good. The girl does sound like a woman trying to sound like a girl.
Hang in there, Moon.
But that can also be interpreted in a separate way as well, influencing the story. They're both voiced by Hannah Murray, who played Gilly in Game of Thrones.
It's going to take time to bridge the gaps.
This game is pretty short and there isn't a ton of replayability outside of trying to collect all of the 98 origami birds. I don't know why not add 2 more to make it a cool one hundo, but okay. This game does offer a cool time for those who want a cute little puzzle platformer. So if you're into games like Limbo, Inside, or Little Nightmares, I think this one's still worth checking out.
Forgive me. Please.
Next up is As Dusk Falls. This is a heavy narrative point-and-click game released in 2022 for PC and the Xboxes, and released in 2024 for the PlayStations. This is the story of 2 families that are affected by a robbery gone wrong, and you play actually as a few characters, going back and forth from 1998 to its present day. You see how the events affected a few people? You are giving some backstory to each character you play as, but it's really up to you to make the decisions that move the story forward. What is probably the best part of this game is that you're not really presented with black and white options. There's some gray in there as well, so you might have to take a second to make a big decision that will affect the overall story. Sometimes characters you play as are even pinned up against each other, and there's a little bit of anxiety there because you don't know if what you will do will affect that character. So there is a little bit of unpredictability to the choices, which I feel these type of games need. Things might escalate quickly from a choice that you might have perceived to be one that might have diffused the situation. This game also sometimes makes you feel a bit dumb for picking what feels like the right answer, and other times you're just rewarded for keeping your cool. If you give it a second, maybe a 4th option would pop up. But that doesn't mean that's the right answer, and that's what's really fun about these type of games. There is no right or wrong answer. There's some QTEs as well, where you'll be swiping, tapping, and mashing, and the results of these have a pretty big impact as well. They really aren't hard to complete by any means. You even have the option to just miss them on purpose. That's how long a time you have to complete them. I understand that the art style might be hit or miss for a lot of people. They might see that's too simple, but I actually enjoyed it. It feels like a pop-up book almost. I like that they were mixing static images with a lot of movement. It just felt different to me. In point-and-click games, the story is what really has to carry the game, along with its performances. And I felt like the performances from everyone was pretty good, and others were just okay. I think that even the dog did a good job. I will say that the story progression was a bit slow. I didn't feel like it actually picked up until the 4th chapter. That's when it really gets juicy to me. But there's a lot of pockets and seed of drama along the way that did have me hooked the whole time. At the end of each chapter, they do give you a bit of personality breakdown depending on your choices that you made, which I also thought was a bit different than just telling you the different percentages of what everybody else picked. You can also see the trajectory of your path and what decision you made led to each outcome, making it easy just to go back and change it to see the different outcome. I obviously played this alone, but it does have very cool and easy multiplayer accessibility options where up to 4 people can vote on the decisions and play. There was really only one issue I had with this game, and that was its ending. It's kind of left way too open-ended in my opinion. It felt more like the end of the penultimate chapter rather than the very last one. It just left a lot of big questions unanswered, but at the same time, it also tied a bow to each character's story. But it also very much feels like there might or there should be a sequel. Whether or not they're working on that, I don't even know. So if you are interested in this game and are going to play it, just know that you might get story blue balls. I'm just letting you know that right now. But if you're into point and click games, I do believe that As Dusk Falls is a pretty good one that if you have not played, you should definitely consider to do so.
And Tyler is much taller, or so I understand. Which means you must be Jay.
Next up is Hauntii, which is a action puzzle adventure platformer released in 2024 for pretty much everything. You play as a little ghost who's traveling through the afterlife collecting glimpses of his past life in a beautiful two-tone hand-drawn animated world, using the art style in the game's favor, changing the colors of each world, and hurting you if you stay too long in the dark. As a little ghost, you can shoot out essence with the joystick, you can dash and haunt enemies, and also things from the environment to use them for combat or puzzle solving. You collect the purple flame to spend on the haunted actions, and the crystals are to buy little cute hats. But the point of the game is to collect these stars that when forming constellations trigger memories from the ghost's past life. The stars are really treated a bit like stars like in Mario 64. You show up in a level and there are a certain amount of stars scattered throughout. There's really no order to collecting them, and they're also not terribly difficult to get either. Maybe you have to haunt something and move it out the way, or destroy a certain block, or take care of enemies that are in a certain area. I would say very simple actions that you have to do to get the star, with some ways even repeating themselves, like there's a race, or retrieving this one ghost dog. Things that sparkle usually have something to do with a star. So you interact with it, hit it, chop it down, do something. The star is there somewhere. The map and menu give you a strong hint as to where the star could be, or the action that you can do to unlock and find the star. You can also upgrade the ghost's health, the amount of dashes, and the essence it shoots by collecting the stars as well. The game could be a bit unpolished at times, like I would collect a ton of stars but not be able to upgrade them until I progressed more in the story. And then when I eventually was able to progress in the story, I already had all these stars that I've been farming, and that just felt a bit weird for the progression. There are very fun and creative boss fights as well, and I loved how they used the art style for the puzzles, maybe hiding things behind certain buildings or a block that doesn't seem like you can move, just simply being a little bit creative with the puzzle. So I didn't mind how easy it was to collect some of the stars because of how creative it felt it was. The different worlds are very cool as well. The art style is really mesmerizing to me within simplicity, and it's longer than I expected it to be. I thought I was going to be in and out in a couple hours, but there's a ton of replayability if you want to collect all the stars. Maybe a star or two can get slightly difficult, but after a handful of tries you can get it. Maybe you have to like dodge a certain way, or a certain enemy that's just blasting with a bunch of stuff at you. It is a much more chill vibe, like it's a cozy version of these type of games that you would usually see that seems super hectic. The music is paired very neatly with everything, and I did find it to be pretty relaxing even during hectic combat sections. I really wasn't expecting much from this game, but it did surprise me. The story is cute and it touches a bit of the feels, and it's pretty creative the way that they want you to haunt things. There's just so much to explore and so much to experience in this little game. If you're into these type of games, cozy dual shooters, I think you won't be disappointed. Finally, Metal Slug Tactics. With this entry, I have to be real. I have to keep it 100 like I always do. I am not really a Metal Slug fan, which shouldn't be a big deal, but since I'm half Mexican and grew up in Mexico, it all of a sudden does become a huge deal, since the franchise has a huge presence in the country. Growing up, it wasn't out of the ordinary seeing a Metal Slug arcade machine in the corner stores, which is really surprising how many of those are still plugged in today. I say all this to preface by saying that I don't really have any emotional attachment to the previous games or characters of the franchise. I really don't even know their names, which I know is a shame on me because it's a legendary franchise and I do bow down to it. I'm not trying to diss this whatsoever. I'm really just respecting the franchise, but I just never got into it. Like, I've played it enough to know the gist. It's a run and gun shooter, but I'm really playing this game for the tactics of it all and not necessarily the Metal Slug. Luckily for me, this story is very basic. So, of course, the bad guy, Donald Molden, the big bad guy of Forever or whatever, he's back to oppose the world government and the Slugs. No, these guys are not called the Slugs? Okay. The Peregrine Falcons. Damn, never knew that's what they were called, but that sounds badass. They have to stop Molden from taking over the world. Metal Slug Tactics did a great job in combining the franchise elements with tactic mechanics that doesn't make this game feel out of place within the series. Again, this is an opinions of a non-fan. One big element being that it's a roguelike, giving you that feeling of starting all over when you die and wasting a quarter, or in my case, 2 pesos. Your goal is to save 3 regions, with Molden's base popping up as the final region to beat. When you pick a region, there are paths you can take to get to certain missions. So you do 3 missions in each region, you have a boss battle, and move on to the next. There's only 3 regions in Molden's base, but the battlefields are randomly generated, so although it's the same 3 environments, the RNG keeps it fresh. There are different missions to choose from. There's eliminate all enemies, eliminate just designated ones, protect people or save people, last a certain amount of turns, or reach the end of the level, destroy convoys. There's a ton of that sort of stuff, with each mission giving you different rewards like extra abilities, upgrades, refill ammo and experience, and all these are specific to the run. There are also bonus objectives that give you extra rewards. You earn money that you use to upgrade the character and or their weapons. And at the end of your run, you can unlock even more stuff for them to show up in the shops in future runs. So the more you play, the more you unlock, and the better you get at the game, like every roguelike. You also unlock different loadouts for each character and abilities. You first start off with 3 characters, since that's how many that can be in your squad. And as you play, you unlock 6 more characters. Squad members can die, but it costs a reinforcement point to revive them. There's no permadeath, so if you finish a mission and one of them is down, there's no penalty for it unless it's a part of the objective, so you just won't get the extra reward. They're each equipped with a primary weapon that they can always use and a secondary weapon that costs ammo. As you get money and level up, each character has different special moves that you can pick from to use in the run. Stuff like launching an airstrike, deploying an explosive decoy. There's so many for each character, but there is the element of luck in that roguelike thing, hoping that they appear for you to upgrade. And to use these, it costs adrenaline. And you gain adrenaline by moving around the board. The more you move around, the more adrenaline you're awarded. You also build up dodge points that serve kinda like a shield for incoming attacks. So the game really rewards you for moving around, which I found to be a really cool way of simulating a run and gun sense in a tactical turn-based game, keeping the very classic mechanic from the franchise. There's also a sync mechanic where if you attack someone and one of your allies is in range, they attack the enemy as well. So there's a lot of strategy in who and how should attack who and how and where, since there are scenarios where you can have the whole squad unload on an enemy or in a group of them. There's a lot of environmental elements as well, springboards, things that can trigger to attack a group, mechs, allies can jump in and use, there's snake barrels, there are parts of a level that can be destroyed, and in the boss fights, the stage is constantly moving. You do only do the same 3 boss fights over and over plus Molden, but the battlefield changes every single time. Like with every roguelike, the more you play, the more you unlock. So the stages get to generate themselves to be a bit harder, and the different missions provide different difficulties. I really struggle with anything that was just not simply kill everything. The protection or the escort missions I found to be pretty tough. So there's some decisions to be made if you do need ammo, for example. Do you do a tough mission and risk the whole run to replenish the ammo? Or do you try and stick it out and wait for an easy mission that does reward you the ammo? Of course, once you get to be a god, none of that matters, but in the beginning, it's really interesting. I also really like how they operate in low numbers. Each squad member has 10 HP. Enemies might have like between 4 and 7. So it's not like you're dealing 10,000 points of damage. It's very simple, low numbers. I think Molden has around 70 HP, which is a lot, but it's not like a Final Fantasy where the HP is up in like the millions. The music is really good as well. The graphics, the sound effects, the art style are very much the same vibe from the past games. I'm sure there were Easter eggs that probably went over my head, but I did like the hobo prisoner dudes that you can save for some extra cash and experience. This game does a good job in every department. In the roguelike, in the Metal Slug department, in the tactical turn-based mechanic, in the fun department is very fun and addicting. So if you love 2 out of those 3 things, roguelike, Metal Slug, or turn-based tactical stuff, I feel this game definitely deserves a shot. I don't usually do list videos, but if you enjoyed this one, let me know by dropping a like so I can do more. Of course, let me know what you think about all these games that I mentioned, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to always and forever, you do you.